In this video, I'm going to rank these fintech companies based on my personal experience and knowledge working in two different fintech companies and also from friends who worked at other fintech companies, based on the criteria of compensation, culture, and the resume empowering potential, also known as prestige. As always with these types of rankings, please keep in mind that these rankings are supposed to be informative but not definitive. It's important to do your own due diligence when thinking about which company to join or invest in, and I encourage you to use this list as your starting point for your exploration of the fintech landscape. Finally, please know that I've excluded hedge funds and proprietary trading companies from this ranking to focus purely on fintech companies that are building products for consumers. So today I'll be ranking the companies based on the criteria I mentioned earlier, and without further ado, let's jump into the rankings. For compensation, the method by which I rank these fintech companies takes into consideration their market cap, if they're public, and otherwise their latest valuation, since the equity tends to be a substantial part of the compensation and the potential for the growth of the company and the increase of their stock's value as a result is often an important factor when determining which company to join. To that end, I've also included the company's latest annual revenue and net revenue, where for private companies, the revenue is according to third-party reports and the net revenue is almost always never shared to the public. Also, I've included the base annual salary of a software and senior software engineer to give an idea of the liquid portion in the compensation excluding the bonus, since these jobs tend to be the most common ones in fintech companies. However, please remember that these numbers are merely a ballpark, and the relative compensation for other roles for these companies might also look different. And also that a higher salary does not mean a higher compensation, since there are also equity grants and bonuses. Finally, as an auxiliary data point, I've included the number of employees to give an idea to whether it's a fresh startup or a fully fledged enterprise. Starting with the bottom three, we have Capital One, that's the techiest out of all the traditional banks, Shopify, and Bloomberg. Bloomberg gets paid a lot for their services, especially their terminal that costs more than $100,000 annually, which allows its users that are mostly institutional investors to connect through a chat and facilitate bilateral trades that are done directly between two brokers without an intermediary exchange like the Nasdaq. These are done for various reasons such as terms or complex trades that the exchange does not support. Out of all the companies here, only Bloomberg has an unknown market cap or valuation, simply because that has never been published. Even their revenue is most certainly off. I'm confident that they're probably doing more than $10 billion annually, which is the figure that was shared publicly. The next three are Coinbase, Carta, and Robinhood, that each provides a decent compensation package with a good amount of equity. Both Robinhood and Coinbase suffered a great deal of the recent and ongoing turmoil, and they have laid off close to a quarter of their company. Fourth, third, and second are Chime, Plod, and Stripe, with great compensation packages and with large amounts of equity. The valuation of Plod and Stripe was slashed by almost a half, and the one you see is the up-to-date one. Lastly, we have Brex, and the cool thing about them is that when you get your offer, you get to choose the split between the cash and the equity. So for example, an offer for a senior software engineer with a total compensation of $400,000 can be split to be all cash, so $400,000 base salary and no equity, all equity, or anything in between. So hopefully this gives you an idea of how the compensation will look like. Now let's go to culture. I came up with this ranking through my personal experience interviewing for some of the companies and learning about them, and having multiple friends and acquaintances that work at these different companies, and lastly through what you may find in online forums. Starting at the bottom are Coinbase, Robinhood, and Stripe that are known to be stressful and not the cushy 9-to-5s. Ranked 7th through 4th are Capital One, Carta, Bloomberg, and Shopify that are mostly laid back and stable companies, partially because they are large players in their respective markets. The last three are Brex, Plod, and Chime. Brex has more of a work hard, play hard mentality. There are high expectations, but perks are great as well. For example, they had partied at an offsite in Denver with a private performance of the Chainsmokers. On the other hand, Plod and Chime have friendly work environments. They are remote first and have a decent work-life balance. Please note that this ranking might look completely different to you based on your interest, and it also depends on the role, the team, and even the time for when the company is doing well or not. So now let's move to prestige. The company you work for will end up on your LinkedIn profile and may attract messages from recruiters and will also eventually end up on your resume when you decide to apply to your next job. The reputation of your company for the role you're applying can make a difference in the opportunities you get, which usually means having a better chance of getting invited to interviews when applying for a job. This ranking will look from the perspective of technical roles. Starting with the third tier, it's Capital One and Shopify that are some of the larger companies here and therefore naturally are the least exclusive. Tier 2 is comprised from Bloomberg, Carta, and Coinbase. While Bloomberg is also large, their engineers are well regarded in the tech industry, and Coinbase used to have better days, but it hasn't been smooth sailing since their IPO, and that has a measurable impact on the perception of the company. Robinhood, Chime, Plot, and Stripe are Tier 1. All of these companies have a reputation for strong technical people and for creating great products that are used widely. And lastly, the S tier, which includes only Brex, is for their high bar for joining the company and also for performing well in it. Brex is also relatively young compared to the other fintech companies here and more startup-y, even though they have over 1,000 employees. And those have some added value in terms of how the company is viewed. I'm sure this is at least somewhat contentious, so please keep in mind that this is from my and my friends' experience and knowledge, and that there are many other great fintech companies like PayPal, Ramp, and many others. Please do your due diligence and use your best judgment when deciding where to work or to invest in, and also make sure that it aligns with your interests and life decisions. This wraps up the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and please share any of your thoughts down in the comment section below. And lastly, if you're interested to learn about the top 10 jobs in fintech, make sure to check the next video. And with that said, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.